Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فبالسند المتصل منا إلى الإمام أمير المؤمنين في الحديث أبي عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل بن إبراهيم الجعفي البخاري قال حدثنا محمد بن المثنى قال حدثنا عبد الوهاب الثقفي قال حدثنا أيوب عن أبي قلابة عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال ثلاث من كن فيه وجد حلاوة الإيمان أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله وأن يكره أن يعود في الكفر كما يكره أن يقذف في النار أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. I have read before you the 16th hadith of Al-Jami' al-Sahih of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. The hadith pertains to Iman, specifically the sweetness of Iman. A quick look at the sanad of this narration. The teacher of Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, the Shaykh of Imam Bukhari for this particular riwayah, is a muhaddith by the name of Muhammad ibn al-Muthanna. He was from Basra and he was born in 167 after Hijrah, passed away in 252. His narrations are found in most of the books of the Sahih. All the A'immah of Hadith have agreed on the authoritativeness of Muhammad ibn al-Muthanna and his reliability as a narrator. He was of the generation of people who took a hadith from Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi, Imam Waqi', who was one of the teachers of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, and many great muhaddithin have taken from him directly, including the famous Imams of Hadith, Imam Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Imam Tirmidhi, Imam Abu Dawood, Imam Nasa'i, and others. He is one of the shuyukh that Imam Bukhari, some of Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi's teachers have also taken hadith from. We talked about Muhammad ibn Yahya al-Dhuhali, so he is also a student of Muhammad ibn al-Muthanna. Khair. He takes his hadith from Abdul Wahab al-Thaqafi. Abdul Wahab al-Thaqafi is from the direct progeny of Banu Umayyah. There was a person by the name of Al-Hakam ibn Abil As, and Abil As being the direct descendant of Umayyah, to whom the Banu Umayyah are attributed. This is one of their forefathers. So Abu Sufyan was from the same lineage. They were children of Umayyah ibn Abd Shams, and Abd Shams was the son of Abd Manaf, and Abd Manaf, the lineage of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and Umayyah, they meet. So Uthman, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu was also from the same lineage. So he was you can say a cousin or rather an uncle of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. He accepted Islam towards the end. Khair, this particular Rawi is from the Atba'u Tabi'in, Abdul Wahhab al-Thaqafi. And one of the interesting things to note about him is that due to his diligence in narrating hadith, he was for his whole life gifted with a very sharp memory and very precise retention of the ahadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But towards the end of his life, he started losing his memory a little bit, like what happens with most people. Now, some people, they continue passing on knowledge, they continue transmitting knowledge. But for the last 3 years of his life, Abdul Wahhab ibn Abdul Majid al-Thaqafi, rahimahullah, he completely stopped narrating ahadith. And he would not allow anyone to come to him for that reason also. Simply for the sake of being diligent and not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to make an error, not wanting to make a slip in relation to the words of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why if someone were to say that, well, his memory became weak or his memory was weak, so the muhaddithin would respond very strongly and say, we know exactly when his memory became weak. It became weak in the last 3 years of his life. And for the last 3 years of his life, he never narrated a single hadith to anyone. Therefore his ahadith, his riwayat are solid. Because every narration that he did pass on, that he did transmit, was in that complete and perfect state of mind and memory, all of which are conditions that the muhaddithin have laid down. And Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi, as we spoke a little bit, has very strict conditions, and he holds every narrator to the highest standard of all of those criteria. And he was a wealthy person. At that time, he would earn somewhere between 40 to 50,000 dirhams in a year. Imam Dhahabi rahmatullahi alayhi mentions that by the end of the year, he would have nothing left. And the reason for that was that he would spend all his earnings on the students of hadith. Those that were coming to him for knowledge, he would be spending on them. So even though he was earning a great deal of wealth, more than enough to keep him comfortable, he wasn't keeping it or using it for himself, he was spending it all on his students. And if he found that there is, for example, a student who is traveling somewhere and he is in this search for hadith, so he would go and spend his money on him, make that person's journey comfortable, provide them what they needed. So this was also a part of what is transmitted along with the wordings of the hadith and the names of the narrators. There is a culture and a tradition that is transmitted along with the words. It's not just about the words. In fact, every narrator passed on a piece of their life, their own actions, their own deeds, their own connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their own piety. They were transmitting all of that while they were transmitting hadith. And the people that were taking from them were also taking this. They were also very much keen to not just take the words of hadith, but they were very closely noting the a'mal and the akhlaq, the behaviors, the mannerisms of their teachers. And the teachers in exchange would keep an eye on the a'mal and the akhlaq of their students. There is a saying of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah saying that, I don't want any such student to come and study with me who is not standing up in the middle of the night and praying tahajjud. I would rather that such people not come to me. So this set a standard for the students of hadith, that, you know what, it's not just going and listening to hadith, it's also about being very diligent in your own practices. So Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal had emphasized this so much, that this is, seeking knowledge is a lifestyle. It's not something you do or you did or you're going to do. It comes with a whole life. And part of that involves and includes getting up in the middle of the night and crying in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just a part of this. Abdul Wahhab al-Thaqafi, rahimahullah, takes this narration from a very famous narrator from the Tabi'is, who is commonly referred to as Ayyub as-Sakhtiyani. And there is a great deal about the biography of this shaykh. He is considered to be from the junior Tabi'is. Junior and senior is based on how many Sahaba you have seen and met, and how many you've taken a hadith from. So, it is said about Ayyub as-Sakhtiyani, rahmatullahi alayh, that he saw Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, which is what brings him into the category of Tabi'is. But he would not have narrated a hadith directly from any Sahabi. Rather, all his transmissions would be through other Tabi'is. But yet he did see Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu. He was one of the great Imams of his time. Imam Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj, rahimahullah, who is also referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen fil Hadith. And it is said about Shu'bah that if there's a hadith that Shu'bah doesn't know, then it means it's not a hadith. He was the golden standard by which a hadith were verified. He said about Ayyub Sakhtiyani that I have never seen anyone of that caliber. I've never seen anyone like him. And he was Sayyidul Fuqaha. He was the head of all the faqihs of his time. And other tabi'is who were much more senior to him would see him and praise him. It is said about Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi that once he was sitting in the presence of Al-Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi. Hasan al-Basri rahmatullahi took his companion to a little bit to the side where Ayyub as-Sakhtiyani couldn't hear him, and he pointed at him with his eyes and he said, this man, he is the Sayyid, he is the leader, the chief of all the youth of Basra. There is no one that can beat him. There's no one that can be ahead of him. In fact, when Muhammad ibn Sirin rahmatullahi passed away, and it was asked, who do we go to? So the unanimous answer was given that everyone should refer to and turn to Ayyub as-Sakhtiyani, rahimahullah. Great people like Hamad ibn Zayd, rahimahullah, used to say that he is the best person whose company I've ever sat in. And Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh happens to be from his students. Imam Malik rahimahullah says that كان من العالمين العاملين الخاشعين. He was from the people who had great knowledge and also had great practice and also had great humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says that the primary reason why I went to Ayyub and took a hadith from him was إجلاله للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the amount of reverence that I saw him displaying for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The amount of ta'aleem, the amount of greatness that he would display in his heart, that he had in his heart for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said it was overwhelming. It compelled me to go to him and become his student. Khair. Like I said, there is much to be said about him. Of course, about his teachers, but also about his students. His students form the foundation of the most solid narrators in the science of hadith. Those happen to be his students. Khair, our time is a little bit limited, otherwise it would be wonderful just talking about the biographies of these people and their incidents from their lives and wisdoms from them. It would be wonderful to just talk about that. He takes this hadith from another tabi'i who was generally known as Abu Qilaba. Abu Qilaba, his name was Abdullah ibn Zayd ibn Amr. He was also from Basra. occupies a level between the junior and the senior tabi'is. And you have those tabi'is who have, like Imam Sha'bi rahimahullah, who stayed with dozens of Sahaba and probably saw hundreds of Sahaba. So that is at the top category of the Sahaba. And then you have the junior tabi'is like Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani, who maybe just saw. And then you have a level. You have a few levels in between, but Abu Qilaba rahimahullah sits very close to the top. His narrations are also in all the books of the Sahih. And he was also one of those people who was extremely pious and God-fearing. When the governors and the leaders were looking for suitable people to make qadis, to appoint as judge at various places, everyone's eyes settled on Abu Qilaba. And they said that he should be not just the judge, but he should be the chief justice. When he found out that people were thinking about this, he ran away. He went into hiding. I don't want this position. I don't want to be put in that position. So much so that from Basra, he traveled all the way across Iraq, across the Arabian Peninsula, went all the way down to Yemen. That's what some say. Others say that he went across towards Sham, towards Yamama, and towards the Arabian Peninsula, towards Yamama. And afterwards, some of his companions met him and they said, "You just disappeared, you ran away." He said that my example was like someone, if I were to have taken that position, my example was like someone who knows how to swim, but is in an ocean that has no end, it has no shore. Undoubtedly, this person is going to exhaust himself and eventually drown. So I needed to save myself from that. Too many tests, too many fine lines, too many trials and tribulations of one's iman and one's taqwa, and one little slip could have ruined my life in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, I needed to escape from it. Khair, he takes this hadith from Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, in which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says. Now this hadith is narrated with different wordings. We are just taking one particular riwayah from Sahih Al Bukhari. Within Sahih Al Bukhari itself, the hadith is mentioned numerous times, some places with words that are more brief and concise than the wording of this riwayah, and in some narrations with a little bit more detail. And this hadith is also found in Sahih Muslim and in many other books. There are three such qualities. The Prophet ﷺ says there are three qualities such that whoever they are in, ثَلَاثٌ مَنْ كُنَّ فِيهِ, three traits, three characteristics, three qualities are such that whoever they exist in, وَجَدَ حَلَاوَةَ الْإِيمَانِ, this person will experience the sweetness of iman. Now, normally when we talk about iman or listen about iman, it's about beliefs, creed, things that we accept or do not accept. And there's a lot of technical discussions. But this hadith is conveying to us the fact, the very important fact, that iman is not just the knowledge of what to believe in and what not to believe in. Rather, this is also a feeling This iman is also a feeling in the heart. And this feeling has many dimensions. And the feeling can increase and decrease, and it can take various forms. And yes, it even has a sweetness to it. So how can a belief have a sweetness when sweetness is something we attribute to a substance that is tasted, a substance that we put on our tongue? That's where animals and critters and all kinds of things, you're out in the elements, as we say, and there's all kinds of inconvenience. Someone who does not have a taste for that type of thing, you leave them out there for 5 minutes and they're going to say, that's it, take me out of here, I can't stand this, not another minute of this. I need my living room, I need my reclining sofa, my leather chair, I need my cup of coffee, I need my this and this and this and this. They can't live without that. Other people, they're happiest when they're out there in the wild. Someone else might say, look, this person is just punishing themselves, torturing themselves. They get up in the morning shivering. There's no warm water, there's no electricity. But this person's having the time of their lives. We could say that this person is experiencing a halawa, an enjoyment, a sweetness in this experience which might seem bitter to someone else. For other people, it's something else, mountain climbing. People out there climbing mountains. There are some people who have a bucket list of climbing all the top peaks in the world, the highest mountains in the world. Now you think, what's wrong with this person? Couldn't they find anything else to enjoy? You're out there in the extreme landscape and extreme temperature and also extreme air pressure conditions. It's a collection of extremes that you're forcing your body through for days. Why would you do that to yourself? But this person just wants to get to the top. And they'll tell you that when I reach that peak, I forget about everything. Now imagine the person who is getting up for Fajr in the winter. Water is still cold. And no one else is around. They have to get up by themselves out of a nice, warm, comfortable bed and make wudu with this water, and then go outside and maybe warm up the car and drive down to their masjid and pray and then come back, knowing very well that this is going to bring a certain amount of inconveniences. But this person is so passionate about it that they won't miss a chance. They're enjoying it. They're so happy when they're doing it. Someone else would say, look, why don't you just sleep? This is, you just lost 45 minutes of sleep in this process. Could have slept. And this person will say, no, I wouldn't leave this for anything. Aside from the fact that it's an obligation, this person experiences a profound pleasure in this exercise. And they will tell you the benefits, just like that camper will tell you the benefits of camping. The mountain climber will tell you the benefits of mountain climbing. The person who gets up for Fajr will tell you the benefits of getting up for Fajr. They're enjoying it. So just like various pursuits in life can become a passion, it becomes a passion and then you enjoy everything that you put into it, Islam can also become like this. One of our shortcomings is that we present Islam as a set of duties and obligations. Do this, don't do this. And most of the time it's don't. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. We say this so much to our children that their minds are filled with don't. Everything means don't. And sometimes they start mimicking our thinking. It's all about what you can't do. Life is all about what you can't do. And then there's just a few little things that you can do, and that's it. You stay within that. Everything else is don't. So when they approach deen, it looks to them, it feels to them that deen is here to limit what I can do in life. But if we took that same deen and presented it the way Rasulullah ﷺ is presenting it, he's not presenting it like this very strict and harsh doctrine. He's presenting it as something enjoyable. Halawatul Iman is the enjoyment that you get just from this Iman. When doing things becomes fun, in other words, to oversimplify it, everything becomes fun. Everything becomes enjoyable. Everything you're doing for your deen, it becomes a joy, a pleasure. So the moment Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says this, everyone's ears perk up and say, how do we get there? How do we get to that place where every difficulty becomes a pleasure? And mind you, Sahaba radiallahu anhu went through so many hardships. Many of those hardships were what we call ikhtiyari, they were by choice. They could have walked away from it all. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, for example, was a wealthy person. He was an extremely well-educated person. And he was also he was from the influential people of society. But he put all of that away. And early in his days of Islam, when he stood up and he announced the Shahada, he got pounced on from all sides. He got pummeled. And they took the heels of their shoes and grinded them into his face, so much so that his nose was flattened. His nose could not be distinguished from the rest of his face. And he was knocked unconscious. When he regains consciousness at the end of the day, in the evening time, and his mother is there as well, first thing that comes to his mind and his heart, and the first thing that comes on his tongue is, ماذا فعل رسول الله? How is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? He was there with me. How is he? And the people that had come to support him from amongst the non-Muslims, they were so disappointed. He said, the person, because of whom all of this happened, you have no one else to ask about but him? And he says, Wallahi, I'm not taking a sip of water, I'm not having a morsel to eat until someone takes me to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is when Iman has become a passion, where all the difficulties, where everything seems worth it, and everything is a part of that journey. So, there's a few ingredients that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is introducing us to, that if we acquire them, then our deen will also become enjoyable. Everything we do, even the inconveniences and the hardships, will become a joy for us, a pleasure for us. The first is أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما. Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam become more beloved to this person in their heart than anything else. In other words, there is so much love for Allah and so much love for His Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the heart of this person that it by far exceeds their love or their attachment to anything else. So there's another very important lesson in this aspect of the hadith, in this part of the hadith, that our deen begins with love. All the good outcomes in our deen are linked to love. They're not linked to hardship or harshness or negativity or limitations. Our deen begins with love, and a person progresses in their deen to the extent of love that they have. Love is the gold standard in our deen. That is what things are measured with, how much love we have. There was a great scholar, muhaddith and faqih, by the name of Allama Halimi, rahimahullah. He was a great Shafi'i jurist, and he was senior to Imam Al-Bayhaqi. Imam Bayhaqi rahimahullah is a great muhaddith. He quotes him frequently in his books. Allama Halimi rahimahullah has sort of put together all of the elements that indicate that a person has love for Allah. So I'm going to very briefly touch on these things, just so we understand, do we have love for Allah or do we not have it, and to what extent do we have it? And once we can understand this, then we can work on increasing that love until it becomes more than anything else in our hearts. So the first thing is that the first element of loving Allah is that we believe He is praiseworthy in every aspect. Every attribute of His is an attribute of perfection. And He possesses all of the attributes of perfection. Every aspect of Allah is beautiful. Every aspect of Allah, when I say aspect, I mean the attributes and the characteristics that are attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every one of them is perfect. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. He has the beautiful names. Every one of those names is representing an attribute of Allah. They're all attributes of perfection. So to believe He is perfect in every way. The second thing is to believe that He is the greatest benefactor. He is constantly showering His bounties upon all His slaves. Unlimited bounties are coming from Him all the time. To know this and to believe it and to feel it in our hearts, that right now I am enjoying so many bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third thing is to know that no matter how many good deeds we do, we can never repay Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His favors. No matter what we achieve, no one is going to do any favors to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A story came to mind, I'll share it with you. In one hadith, it's mentioned that there was a person who was stranded on this island, and the island was basically just a mass of rock in the middle of the water. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made provisions for him to sustain him. First thing was that this person needed fresh water and he was in the middle of the ocean. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from that rocky mass, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala produced a stream for him, a stream of fresh water. The second thing was that on this mass of rock, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grew for him a tree. It was a pomegranate tree. And this tree would give fruit every day of the year. So every day he would have fresh fruit, he would have fresh water, and he spent his time in ibadah. And he just had one dua, that, oh Allah, I want you to take my ruh, take my soul in a state that I am in sujood. Like this, hundreds of years passed. Some 400 years passed. And when his time came, that prayer of his was accepted, he was in sujood, and the angel of death came and took his soul. When the angels presented him in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah azza wa jalla looked at him and said, I'm going to have sympathy for this slave of mine. I'm going to show mercy to him. So out of my mercy, you enter him into Jannah. So he spoke out. He said, oh Allah, what about my 400 years of ibadah? If it comes down to just your mercy, then what about all of that ibadah that I did? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, look, I was giving you a free pass, but you want to pay your way through. So okay. He told the angels, you go and calculate his good deeds over these years and calculate my ni'mas, my favors. If he has enough good deeds to pay for those favors, then he enters into Jannah. And if he doesn't have enough good deeds to pay for my bounties, then he goes to the other place. Because he is insisting that he wants to pay his way. He wants his deeds to be brought in. He wants to enter into Jannah because of his deeds. So let's see if he has enough deeds. So the angels came back very quickly. They said, oh Allah, we tabulated his deeds. And when we started looking at which bounties he can pay for, he only has enough to pay for one ni'mah of yours. And that is the ni'mah of his sight, his eyesight. So everything else is owing, his account is in the negative. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, okay, fine. Well, he doesn't have enough to pay his way through, so send him to the other place. Then he cried out, he said, oh Allah, have mercy on me. Allah said, that's what I was doing, I was having mercy on you. And this reminds us of the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that no one's going to enter into Jannah by merit, solely by merit of their own deeds. Sahaba asked, even you, O Prophet of Allah? He said, even me. إِلَّا أَن يَتَغَمَّدَنِيَ اللَّهُ بِرَحْمَتِهِ, unless Allah enshrouds me with His mercy. So the realization that no matter what we do, we will never be in a position where we are paying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His favors. We cannot fulfill the haqq of shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next component of love for Allah, we're talking about what constitutes love for Allah. That's what we're talking about. 10 elements he's mentioned that constitute love for Allah. Somebody has them, they have love for Allah, then they can measure to what extent they have these things. The fourth one is that a person never undermines the decisions of Allah, never questions the decisions of Allah, never looks down at the decisions of Allah, never says, no, it shouldn't have been like this, it should have been like this. Or why was it like this? Why was it not like this? A person never to do this, it's a sign of lack of love. Love for Allah means, oh Allah, you've decided, that's it. And similarly, a person does not consider the commands of Allah to be excessive. Sometimes we say it, and we should be very careful with what we say. Oh, this is too much. I can't do this. I can't handle this. No, the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are never excessive. The commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they're the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are exactly what the slave is required to do and what the slave needs to do. That's what they are. So to challenge the wisdom of Allah, this is against love for Allah. The other thing is that a person has this apprehension inside that I don't want to be deprived of the recognition of Allah. I don't want to be deprived of being close to Him. I don't want to be deprived of worshiping Him. I don't want to be deprived of believing in Him. I don't want to be deprived of this. This is a big treasure. So a person regards this faith, this iman, yaqeen, and ma'rifah, the recognition of Allah, as a very special treasure that they don't want to lose. That they're apprehensive that, look, if I'm careless, I could lose it. Just like when you love someone dearly, you're very happy that you have them, and you never want to lose them. And sometimes the thought crosses your mind that, oh, I hope I don't do something that results in me losing this person. It's a sign of love. The sixth thing is that all this person's hopes are attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They never feel independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. Whatever aspirations they have in life, those aspirations connect directly with Allah, that I hope Allah can make this happen. Not that I hope I get this. What does that even mean? You hope you get this. Because everything comes from Allah. No one gives and no one takes other than Allah. So our hopes are linked to Allah, and we never feel independent of His assistance and His mercy. Seventh thing, all of the things that we've mentioned so far, these 6, they manifest themselves in such a way inside the person that a person is constantly thinking of Allah. A person is constantly thinking. I'm using this term, thinking of Allah, because today the word dhikr is very grossly misunderstood, severely misunderstood. Dhikr means, okay, I did my dhikr after salat. I read that tasbih. I did this dhikr in the morning, I read this, I read that. I'm using the term thinking of Allah because the essence of dhikr is to become mindful. Dhakara, it means to remember, to become mindful of something. To become mindful of Allah. All of these above feelings are compelling a person to always have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their heart and on their mind. And a person practices this. It doesn't happen by itself. A person has to first remind themselves that, wait a minute, where's my mind right now in this moment? Where's my heart right now in this moment? And a person continues to practice and practice and practice until this becomes their nature. It becomes their nature. They become الذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات. They're frequently and profusely remembering Allah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا وسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا. Profusely remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The 8th thing is that this person rushes. They hasten to perform the acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made necessary for them. The acts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made compulsory for them, they rush towards those acts. They don't put them off, delay them, find excuses to get around them. They rush towards them. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the Anbiya and their families, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا. They'll be rushing towards good deeds. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Race with one another towards good. Ninth thing. When this person observes someone being close to Allah, someone who is close to Allah, somebody's making an effort to get close to Allah, someone is making they're engaged in some kind of struggle to get close to win Allah's pleasure, this person will always consider that one to be their friend. They will befriend that person. In fact, these are the people this person will befriend. Why? Because this person's life revolves around Allah. So who else would they choose to be their friends but those who themselves are friends of Allah? On the path to becoming a friend of Allah, how can you befriend those who don't know Allah? You want to have friends that will help you in your purpose. And the 10th thing is that if they notice someone making an effort to get close to Allah or do something that Allah likes, they will help them in any way that they can, encouraging them, motivating them, assisting them in anything that's required. And if they notice that someone is doing something to displease Allah, they will never assist them and they will never befriend them in those acts. These are 10 elements that Allama Halimi rahimahullah has mentioned that constitute the love of Allah. When these things percolate inside a person, and they get stronger and stronger and stronger, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes more beloved to this person than anything else. So we learn from this that love for Allah, or profound love for Allah, cannot be established by just claiming to have it. It's not a claim that falls back on emptiness. No, it's a claim that is very well substantiated. There is a record, you can say, of acts, feelings, and beliefs that are behind this claim that I love Allah. So a person starts walking on this path until truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala overwhelms this person with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love. Now, it cannot be that a person has all this love for Allah and they're ignoring his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that leads us to the next element in this. أَن يَكُونَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. It's not just Allah. This is the honor that Allah has given to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that wherever the command has been given to obey Allah, the command has been given to obey His Rasul. There is not one place in the Quran, not even one, where Allah says أَطِيعُ اللَّهِ and He doesn't follow it up with وَأَطِيعُ الرَّسُولِ. وَأَطِيعُ اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُ الرَّسُولِ وَأَطِيعُ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَأَطِيعُ اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُ الرَّسُولِ. Wherever the command is to obey Allah, it's followed with the command to obey Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allah has joined His beloved Prophet, because Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the most beloved of the creations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah azza wa jal keeps His name with His own name. Subhanallah. This reminds me of some couplets that Hassan ibn Thabit radiyallahu anhu said. He said, أَغَرَّ عَلَيْهِ لِلنُّبُوَّةِ خَاتَمٌ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَشْهُودٌ يَلُوحُ وَيَشْهَدُ وضم الإله اسم النبي مع اسمه إذ قال في الخمس المؤذن أشهد وشق له من اسمه ليجله فذو العرش محمود وهذا محمد. He said, that shining, gleaming human being who has the stamp of nubuwwah with him. من الله مشهود. Allah is testifying to His nubuwwah. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُهُ يَاسِينَ وَالْقُرْآنِ الْحَكِيمِ إِنَّكَ لَمِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Allah is testifying to His risala, and He is testifying to the oneness of Allah. وَضَمَّ الْإِلَهُ اسْمَ النَّبِيِّ مَعَ اسْمِهِ. Allah has joined this Prophet's name with His own name. He says, you want an example? إِذْ قَالَ فِي الْخَمْسِ الْمُؤَذِّنُ أَشْهَدُ. Every salat, when the muazzin says Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, his adhan will not be complete until he also says Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. There is no adhan that can be given without the name of Muhammadur Rasulullah after the name of Allah. And at any given time around the globe, there is adhans going on. Any given time. Somewhere there is an adhan. Subhanallah. Somewhere the name of Allah is being taken, and right after that the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being taken. وَشَقَّ لَهُ مِنْ إِسْمِهِ لِيُجِلَّهُ. Allah cut out His name from His own name to honor Him. How is that? فَذُو الْعَرْشِ مَحْمُودٌ. Allah is Mahmud, Allah is Hamid. One of the names of Allah is Hamid, the one who is worthy of all praise. فَذُو الْعَرْشِ مَحْمُودٌ وَهَذَا مُحَمَّدٌ. And this is Muhammad. So Allah has honored him. Love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is acquired by dedicating oneself to anything and everything related to our Nabi. Read his fadail, read about how Allah has given him names, how Allah has praised him in the Quran, because no one can praise him like his own Lord has. Read how Allah has praised him and what kind of status Allah has given him. Read how He has mentioned His own virtues that Allah has given him. Read about his miracles. Read about his akhlaq. Read about his decisions. Read about his lifestyle. Read about his sacrifices. Read about his disinterest in dunya. Read about his closeness to Allah. Read about his forgiveness. Read about his patience, his tolerance. Read about his knowledge. When you engage with anything to do with this Nabi, you cannot walk out without loving him. So take anything. Take any of these things and busy yourself with it. Your heart will be filled with the love of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this love for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a requirement. It's a part of our iman. Can you imagine? This love makes up the fabric and the DNA of our deen. If we spent some time just on this, on developing our love for Allah, on developing our love for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we started sharing this with other people, it would be so much easier for us and others to practice deen. But we make the error of presenting limitations, restrictions, commandments, instructions, and letting people find their own love or not, never finding it, and they're stuck in this limbo of not having the willpower or the inner desire to practice, but at the same time being forced to practice. But that's not how deen works. It comes from inside. In fact, it gushes out. That love doesn't stay quiet, doesn't stay silent. It literally gushes out of a person in the form of a'mal. So the standard that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has set for us is, or you can say the challenge that he has given us, is really, the challenge is how much can you love? This is the challenge being presented in this hadith. What kind of a heart do you have? How much can your heart love? If your heart can truly love, then let's see how much you love Allah, and let's see how much you love His Rasul. Now look, this theme of love continues. The second condition for having this sweetness, this enjoyment in our iman, it has to do with our love for other people. وَأَن يُحِبَّ الْمَرْءَ لَا يُحِبُّهُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. That this person starts loving other people only for the sake of Allah. What does that even mean? What does it mean, loving someone for the sake of Allah? Well, you love someone because Allah loves them. You love someone because they have iman in their heart. You love someone because they're doing something good. You love someone for being a good person. You love someone without desiring to benefit from them in any way, shape, or form. Maybe in a religious way, or in a spiritual way, or in terms of knowledge, you want to benefit from them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all a part of our deen. But you don't have any worldly gain affiliated to that person. There's no worldly gains involved. There's no agenda. There is no possible interest, vested interest that you have, that you're trying to get from that person. And this act has been deemed by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam as awthaq ura al-iman. It is the strongest handle of deen. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked, ayyu ura al-imani awthaq. Which thing of deen that if I hold on to, it gives me the firmest standing. It gives me the strongest position in my deen. What is that? If you could tell me something. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, al-hubbu fillah wal-bughdu fillah. You start loving people only for the sake of Allah. Another hadith. Man ahabba lillah wa abghada lillah wa a'ta lillah wa mana'a lillah فَقَدْ اسْتَكْمَلَ الْإِيمَانِ. A person who loves only for the sake of Allah. When they choose not to love, it's also only for the sake of Allah. It's not because of a personal liking or disliking or conflict, or it's only for the pleasure of Allah that you choose not to love that person. When they give only for the sake of Allah. When they withhold, they're withholding only for the sake of Allah. This person has completed and perfected their iman. You all know the famous hadith. It's in Bukhari and Muslim and other books about the 7 people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place under the shade of His arsh on the Day of Judgment. So one category is رَجُلَانِ تَحَابَّا فِي اللَّهِ. 2 such men, 2 such people who loved each other only for the sake of Allah. And it was that love for Allah that joined them, and it was that love that they separated with. They joined with that love, they separated with that love. In one hadith is mentioned, hadith Qudsi, وَجَبَتْ مَحَبَّتِي لِلْمُتَحَابِّينَ فِيَّ. Allah says, my love becomes wajib, becomes compulsory for those who love each other for my sake. On the Day of Judgment, Allah will announce, أَيْنَ الْمُتَحَابُّونَ بِجَلَالِي. Where are those who used to love each other and keep relations with each other just out of my honor and my glory? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor them, giving them special pulpits, special thrones on the Day of Judgment. It goes on. So starting to love people only for the sake of Allah. You see a spark of iman in someone's heart. And you say, you know what, Allah loves that spark. I'm going to love it too. That's it. I might not know this person. I don't need to. I love them unconditionally, only for the sake of Allah. Like I said, this hadith is teaching us how much can you love. Allah wants to see a heart that's filled with love. Love for Allah, love for His Rasul, love for mankind. Love for each other. And love is such a powerful emotion. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah has written a whole book on love. You know, we look at him as a jurist, as a mufassir, as a muhaddith, as a very academic person, but he's actually written a whole book on love. قَاعِدَةٌ فِي الْمَحَبَّةِ. And in this book he establishes that the true catalyst for all human actions is their love for something. Everyone is doing whatever they are doing because of their love for something. Love is the true motive behind everything that the human being does. And he gives many, many examples. So, starting to love each other for the sake of Allah, it brings the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on those people. Another Sahih hadith, a person was going to a nearby town and he was going to visit someone, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an angel to go and ask him where he's going, why he's going. So the angel met him along the way. Where are you going, my friend? He said, I'm going to visit a friend of mine in such and such town. He said, oh, do you have to get something from him? Does he owe you something? Or is there something that you need to do for him, something that you owe him? He said, no. لا غير أني أحببته في الله. No, I just love him for the sake of Allah. So then the angel revealed his identity and said, Allah has sent me to tell you that because of this visitation of yours, Allah has forgiven all your previous sins. So loving is, to be honest, in our society, loving is going out of style. It's not fashionable to love anymore. It's more fashionable to be exclusive and to be reclusive and to be, more independent and keep your distance from people, and it's all about you. And then we wonder why we're so miserable and empty inside. We've forgotten those basic lessons that generations and centuries of Muslims had, and it was just loving people. And the thing about love is that it's contagious, it spreads. You feel it. And then you want to share it with others. And the last part of this hadith also has to do with love. But because there is an outcome that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wants to save us from, the wordings are wordings of fear. But if you look at the way the hadith is presented, love for Allah, love for His Rasul, love for other people, for the sake of Allah. That's three things. So that's 75% of the hadith. 25% is fear. Fear in the sense that by now, after having understood this, you are, because you've increased your love for Allah and His Rasul so much, you won't even think of doing something wrong. And if the thought of doing something wrong would come to your mind, you would dispel that thought. You would run away from that thought as if just like you were running away from the fire of Jahannam itself. That a person dislikes, or I should say detests, going back into kufr. That could mean the beliefs associated with kufr, or the acts associated with kufr. A person would detest going back to those things just like they would detest being thrown into a fire. Why? Because that is the greatest hijab, it's the greatest veil between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah and His Rasul have become so beloved to this person, he cannot live without them. And he knows, or she knows, that if I were to do this act, it's going to take me away from Allah and His Rasul. So they will run away from that act just like a person would run away from fire itself. So it's not just love for good deeds, it's also a call it a repulsion. A person feels repulsed by bad deeds. No, I would never think of it. I would never do it. I would never consider. No way. And when a person adopts this mindset, and this mindset is extremely important, a person can identify pathways that lead to it. If we don't have this mindset, then what happens is, we, like many other naive people, start asking the question, well, is it haram or is it not haram? Can you give me a clear fatwa? Because if it's not haram, I'm going to do it. Okay? Somebody might give you a fatwa that is not absolutely haram, but you know what? It still ends up leading to Jahannam. Not everything that is incorrect has to be labeled haram. Haram is a technical definition. Haram doesn't mean, haram is wrong, and something is not absolutely haram, it doesn't make it right. So then we start playing these games. Just, find a loophole for me. Find some way out for me. That's not the attitude of a Muslim. A Muslim is looking at the bigger picture. Does this lead me to something wrong, or does it lead me to something right? Very simple question. Simple way to navigate. Does this lead me towards Allah? Does it lead me away from Allah? That's enough for us. Because we work on the premise of Allah being the most beloved to us. And after Allah, His Nabi is the most beloved to us. That's where we begin. That's our baseline. And then all of a sudden, deen becomes so much simpler and clearer for us. Our decisions and choices in life become clearer for us. And what we need to stay away from also becomes clear for us. So this was the very brief hadith that we have discussed in just a little bit of detail, but there is plenty of guidance. There's plenty of guidance for all of us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable me and all of you who are listening and who are fortunate enough to be able to spend your time in a pursuit like this. Sometimes I think, when I'm coming here, I think, Friday night people are doing all kinds of things. But you people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this tawfiq and this understanding to take out that time and come to listen to something like this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you immensely, inshallah. May Allah Azza wa Jal use this sacrifice of yours to open up the doors of guidance for yourselves and your future progenies. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this series of ours, which is now concluding with this dars, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a means of preserving deen in our lives, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a means of increasing the love for the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and increasing the love of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in our hearts and in the hearts of our children and families. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Here we determine if something is sweet or not. How can a belief have sweetness? Well, when a person's heart becomes so comfortable with something, and it becomes intimately familiar but also extremely attached to something, whereby it sort of overshadows every aspect of that person's being, and it makes everything enjoyable.